What's going on, YouTube? Today we go back in time again to the Sega Genesis as I give you the top 10 games that you have to play for the Sega Genesis. And boy, oh boy, we've given you already the Nintendo system, we've given the Super Nintendo, but Sega, I thought it was gonna be a lot easier, and it's actually not. It's actually one of those systems that was ahead of its time and had a lot of games out there that I wish were on the list, but it wasn't. And honestly, I want to give it up to this comment right here from XLXXX. I don't know how many X's you're gonna have in your name, but saying this is a vanilla list when I did the Super Nintendo one. Look, those are the top 10 games you have to play for the Super Nintendo. I am going to make the most underrated games, some of the most 5-star games. So we're gonna have a lot more tier lists coming out in the future. Let me know what type of tier list you guys want me to do. But this is my top 10 games you have to play for the Sega Genesis, because as I grew up, the Sega Genesis was probably my favorite system. Yes, I loved it a lot more than the Super Nintendo. I loved it a lot more than the NES. Why? Because I loved all the characters they brought, all the different gameplays, and some of the games, even though they came out for the Super Nintendo, on the Sega Genesis, they were just a little bit better. And you'll see it on our list out here. We did run a poll where I had 4 games on there, and you guys would choose which one you thought was in the top 3. Obviously, we had Moonwalker, Strider, Aladdin, and Shining Forces 2. Well, let's get into the list and see which one of those made it to the top 3 and see if you're right or not. Number 10 on our list, no other than the spooky adventures of Splatterhouse. Splatterhouse for the Sega Genesis is considered a good beat-em-up game with a creepy story, excellent music, and multiple endings. Released in 1988 by Namco, you play as Rick, who uses the power of the spirit in his mask to rescue his girlfriend Jennifer from a cursed mansion. So look, Splatterhouse was one of those type of games that the music was just so eerie, and that's the one thing with Sega Genesis that was so good about them, is their music for all their type of games. And it just gave me like that weird vibe of, like, you know, Jennifer's, like, I think it was in part 2, Jennifer's warm aider, and now it's starting to go around her face, and now she's turned into a demon, and you know, you saved her. Or it's like there was multiple endings, so it made you have more of a replay value on it. But Splatterhouse, very good start to the list. But man, this was not easy. But number 9, we go no other than Shinobi 3 Return of the Ninja Master. Shinobi 3 Return of the Ninja Master for the Sega Genesis is considered one of the best action games of all time due to its fluid gameplay, amazing soundtrack, and many hidden gameplay mechanics. It's exceptionally fun, challenging, but fair, has awesome 16-bit graphics, and an amazing soundtrack. If you have a Sega Genesis and enjoy action, platform, or ninja games, please go out and play this game. You had Ninja Gaiden for the Nintendo, and you had Shinobi for Sega Genesis. And they were both 2 different ones. You know, Ninja Gaiden was more of a run, jump, and all this. Shinobi was more of a, you know, double jump into doing different moves. You know, your character was, you know, there was more of a story to it. I loved everything about it. The first 2 were great, but number 3 was probably the best one of them all. Again, if you have not played it, I recommend it 100%. Number 8, I want to give some credit out there, because I knew Gamer, one of my best friends, told me about this game. He goes, this has to be on your list. And if it's not, we're not gonna be friends anymore. But number 8 is no other than Vector Man. There were many technical, brilliant games toward the end of the 16-bit era, and Vector Man is one of the best. The game uses pre-rendered graphics like Donkey Kong Country, but excels in a different way through smart art choices. Most of the sprites are separate 3D balls moving in unison. So Vector Man, I think Sega saw what Super Nintendo was doing with Donkey Kong Country and goes, you know what? Let's push our game to the limit. We can do the same thing. And they came out with Vector Man, and they did not miss with this game at all. It was a lot of fun. It's kind of wacky, but I enjoyed it to the fullest. If you have not played it, check it out. Number 7 is no other than the shirt that I'm wearing right here. It is no other than Mortal Kombat 2. If you guys don't know, I literally have an alert in all my live streams where if you type in Toasty, I pop on the side of the screen and say Toasty. So check that out whenever you see me live streaming. But Mortal Kombat 2 was the pinnacle of fighting games at the time. It was the last great 2D fighting game. Had a wide range selection of characters, each with their own array of moves and combos. They lacked the balance found in the original MK, where all the fighters were pretty much equal for a skilled player. Everyone's gonna be saying, look, if you look at my shirt, there's Sonya Blade, Sonya, you have Johnny Cage, you have Kano, you have obviously the logo, you have Sub-Zero, Raiden, Liu Kang, Scorpion. I was 100% a Scorpion fan. I know a lot of people are like, well, you know, Sub-Zero was probably the best one, or Liu Kang is the best one. No, Scorpion was the best one with the get over here. And when the movie came out, it was so iconic. I think the one that had the best finisher still has to be Kano. Kano had the best one when he rips out the heart and throws it in the air. I love seeing the behind scenes of how they actually made the game. And I remember there was a spoof game that they came out with that they tried doing the same thing with Mortal Kombat 2. But it's one of those games that I was very, very young when it came out. And I don't know how my mom bought it for me. It must have been because of my cousins. But I remember playing it. I loved it. It's great. Get it? It's one of those games I could probably play now and still enjoy compared to like playing Mortal Kombat 1 that just came out and all these other ones that came out as well. Number 6 on the list. If you voted for it in the poll, you lost. But it was no other than Strider. Strider was a visionary title. For its time, it set the bar for side scrollers. Tons of quickly changing environments, incredible sprites and bosses, unique character control, Capcom's trademark, best in the business music and sound. Capcom was like the king of music for any type of game. You know, you've had Mega Man, you've had Strider, you've had all these games, Street Fighter, you've had all these games, and Capcom always delivered when it came to music. Strider was one of those characters that even now, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 that just got re-released, I love playing with Strider. And I love playing Strider when I was a kid playing that game. I don't know, I think it was kind of like almost like our Rambo, but style of like Star Wars, where because it was like, you know, some strong guy with a sword, you know, but he's in space type of thing. So it kind of gave an element of both, made me love it a lot more than, you know, most would out there. But now, if you have been liking this list, we've already gone down 5 of the games right now. We saw the top 5 to go. If you have not smashed that like button, smash it right now and make sure to subscribe if you haven't as well. We are doing very good, and I love these videos that we're doing right now. If you have any suggestions of what games you would have been putting in these top 10 so far, let me know in the comments below as well. But let's get into it. Number 5. I'm not controversial right now, but it's not controversial because no other than Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. The music and Michael really makes things interesting. You can get enemies to dance with you, throw your hat around, moonwalk, and perform other classic moves. The whole entire fact that you're able to run around in a map and obviously save little children, you know, because that's what you're trying to do throughout the game, because that's how the movie was when they did it. You're playing through all these different levels of, you know, Michael Jackson's story. So every single level had one of his hit songs. And obviously, you know, you start kicking and you start throwing, you know, like, I don't know, magic to knock out your enemies. And then you get bubbles at the end that will take you to, you know, the boss level where you're fighting a bunch of people. But the ending of the game was the best part, where you turn into like a huge Michael Jackson Moonwalker robot thing. If you haven't checked out the movie, check out the movie before you play the game, because you're going to be like, what am I playing? And why did Troll tell me that this is in the top 5? Watch the movie. It's very out there, but it was really, really good back in the day. I loved it. Can't get enough of it. I actually want to play it again because it's one of those games that it's super iconic. And honestly, if you're trying to get your hands on it, like right now, like an actual copy, it is literally going for like almost like $100 or more, because it's such one of those hard relic type of games out there to get. Number 4, one of these games that honestly, I think it revolutionized a lot of the games that we have out there, but it's no other than Golden Axe, all right? It's awesome because it's an imaginative action video game series with key fantasy elements inspired by the role-playing tabletop games that were rising in popularity at the time, and it's at its core. But it's also a side-scrolling action arcade style beat 'em up like Streets of Rage. The game featured 3 different characters you can choose from, between a rogue, a warrior, or, you know, an orc. And each one having their own special abilities with magic you can use. And of course, you can jump on little dinos. Golden Axe was one of those type of games that it was a lot of fun. It was hard because for some reason, I don't know how they were able to program this, but there's times that you have like multiple people around you. Like you'll have one person behind you, one person in front of you. You know, depending on what your magic was, you would use different spells. Each one had their own special ability. But I love getting onto the little animals. You had like remember the dino one that you had? You had the little dragon one on the floor as well with the tail whip. It's one of those games that you can play as a single player, you can play as a dual player. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot. And obviously Golden Axe 2 was a lot of fun as well. So check it out, play it, and let me know what you think. We get into the top 3. Now, if you don't remember, there are 2 games left, right, on our list. Shining Forces 2 and Aladdin are the only 2 games left that probably made it into the top 3. But it's not number 3 that any of those 2 made it. Because number 3 goes to no other than the weird alien duo, Toe Jam and Earl. Toe Jam and Earl is a great game in every way. When it comes to its technical solutions, I'm most impressed by the dynamic split screen. Definitely more games should use it. The random generation of levels and the ability to go back from the last to the first always amazed me, given the console's capabilities. Look, Toe Jam and Earl was one of those type of games that it came out on the Epic Game Store, I think last year for free. So if you didn't play it, you can get it. It's on Steam. It's on everything. It's one of those games that honestly was like, they were almost like a mascot, you would say. Like, I know a lot of systems right now have their own mascot. So you have like Xbox has Master Chief, has Gears of War. And then obviously for the PlayStation, you have, you know, Kratos, you have Drake from Uncharted and other characters as well. I am drawing a blank right now. But it was kind of one of those staples that you had as one of your main characters for the Sega Genesis. And it's still a good game to the test of its time. Yes, it does get repetitive, but I enjoyed every single bit of it. I love the jokes. I love the quirkiness of it. And it's one of those games that I still cherish to this day. Number 2, and I do own this game. So it is one of my favorite ones. It is also my favorite Disney movie out there. So if you didn't know what I'm talking about, it's no other than Aladdin. Oh my God. It is Aladdin for the Sega Genesis. I actually have the actual game with the instruction manual and everything like that. I love this game. It is one of my all-time favorite games. So both of the games were good, all right, and both of the games were great because it did come out both for the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo. But when it comes to music, animation, actual gameplay, challenge, and level design, the Genesis version wins every category. Now, the Super NES version was done by Capcom. The Sega one was done by no other than Virgin. Now, if you don't know who Virgin is, Virgin made a bunch of games out there. Now, the Aladdin game for this one was made by the same guy who made the one from Earthworm Jim, which is probably why I liked this so much, was that I loved Earthworm Jim, so I liked the way that I was playing. But the story in this game was a lot better than the Super NES version, even though Capcom's the one that ran the other one. I think having a different company making this game kind of gave it a little bit of different elements they would want to play. It is an amazing game. If you have not played it, I would 100% suggest you guys go out there, try it out for yourself. If you want to play both, that's great. I'll actually make a video of me playing both games, both the Super Nintendo version and the Sega version, and give you my thoughts on both as well. We go into number 1, the cream of the crop of all games for the Sega Genesis. And we've had so many of them. There's a lot of them that can go out there. I mean, look, we have, you know, one right there. We have James Pond. We have, I wouldn't say Combat Cars, but it's no other than the one that's literally right behind me, right there. No other than Sonic 2 takes the series for all eternity for my favorite Sega game that you have to play of all time. The Sonic series is an all-time favorite, but my favorite of all of the games is Sonic 2 for the Sega Genesis. The levels of this game are fantastic, ranging from classic zones like Emerald Hills to brand new zones like Chemical Plant and Mystic Mountain. And my favorite, the Wind Fortress Zone. The levels often have numerous paths and tons of secrets, which make exploration really rewarding and fun. It is fast, challenging, and more rewarding the more you play it. Now look, the Chemical Plant Zone music is probably the best music I've heard in any Sonic game. And then we always had, you know, and it's funny because my girlfriend, we played the game recently because we got the Sonic Mania one for the Nintendo Switch. And she's like, oh, I'm gonna play as Tails and you'll play as Sonic. So she's just flying around on top and all that stuff. She can't die. So it was one of those type of things that when you were younger, like I was a young one, so my cousin would go, hey, look, you want to play? Here you go. Take the controller. You'll play as Tails. I'll play as Sonic. And I was all excited. I was like, oh man, I'm going to play this. I'm going to do great. I'm dying 1,000 times, but since you're Tails, nothing really happens, you know, so you're just pretty much doing your thing. The only time that would mess up is when you're trying to go for those chaos rings and you're trying to get all the rings and all that. Yeah, if I'm playing as Tails, I will probably mess up for you, hit a bomb, and you'll probably do some rings and stuff like that, or the rings that I got. But it was great. I like their version of getting the Chaos Emeralds compared to the first one, which was the whole entire thing that you had to jump and kind of like hit a certain area. The third one with Knuckles, which my girlfriend honestly got, we're gonna give her a round of applause. She got all 7 Chaos Emeralds. She was there for like hours playing it. That one's the one that you had like a flat surface and you're walking around jumping over like the blue ones, and you can't touch any of the red balls or anything like that. If not, you pretty much end the level. She was really good at that one. I wasn't good at that one. But Sonic 2 was pretty much everything that you wanted in a Sonic game. Mixed into one. It's probably one of my favorite, actually it is my favorite Sonic game of all of them. I wish that Sonic will go back to that type of style. Kind of like how Super Mario Wonder kind of went back to, you still had the element of like, you know, 3D walking around, but the gameplay was all side-scrolling. And I feel like Sonic needs to go back to that type. Sonic Adventures has really fallen flat for me. I know Sonic Adventures for the Sega Dreamcast was very, very good, but the new ones have been coming out have not been that great. And I think Sonic needs to go back to its old roots. Give us a Sonic 1, 2, 3 style gameplay, which is like a 2D platform, and let us fall in love with you all over again. I know Sega, you're re-releasing some games out there. We're excited about that. But let's go back to our old roots. You know, let's get the young people, like, well, the older people like me, back into your type of games. But that's my top 10. If you like it, great, give me a thumbs up. If you don't like it, I'm sorry, but these are the top 10 games I will recommend for you to play. We are going to make some other tier lists, so don't worry. We're going to do the most underrated games for the Sega Genesis, the 5-star games for the Sega Genesis, and the 1-star games as well for the Sega Genesis. So a lot more videos are going to be coming out with the retro series. We are going to be jumping into next for the Nintendo 64 on our next video. So I hope you have been enjoying this. As always, like and subscribe. I am your favorite retro troll on YouTube. If you haven't checked out the other videos, I'm going to pop out the first one right here, which is going to give you the Super Nintendo one, and then you can check out the Nintendo one as well. But I am Mr. Angry Troll. Peace out, game on, and I'll see you on the flip side.